In today's society, people have a negative perspective on Freemasonry, so I thought I'd take it upon myself to find out the truth and look behind the scenes of what really goes on. Welcome to Inside Freemasonry. My journey first starts at Surbiton, where I was able to get an interview with a member of the International Co-Freemasonry. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Fidel.
What is your name?
My name is Sally, and I've been a Freemason for about 3 years now.
Okay. One question I'd like to ask you. What is Freemasonry?
Well, it's whatever you believe it to be. It's often described as a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, which basically means, in simple language, it's about universal truths told in a very special and meaningful way, using symbols, using stories, using dramas to talk about and inculcate the great truths which we learn in life, how to make ourselves better people, how to improve ourselves, and how to hopefully bring some light to the world at the same time.
This is a peculiar type of lodge. It's a mixed lodge, right? So you've got female and male. This is very...
Okay, let me just clarify something at this point.
Okay.
This, what you're talking about is the order, the International Order of Co-Freemasonry, Le Droit Humain, which is an international order. Okay. It's in, I believe, 66 countries of the world. The headquarters of the whole order are in France, and it's divided up into different federations in different countries, and we in this country are the British Federation. We are not, the whole order is not a lodge, it's comprised of many lodges. So it's, when you talk about co-Freemasonry, it's the whole order. It's the
whole umbrella.
Whole umbrella.
Okay.
And under that umbrella, several different lodges will meet.
So are there any disagreements in terms of rules? Are there any different set of rules? And are there any sanctions if these rules are broken?
We have, obviously, as the British Federation, we are free to govern ourselves under the big umbrella of what's called the International Constitution, which is like the articles under which the whole order is governed. So yes, there are rules, that's right. Within that, we in the British Federation have our own set of regulations which apply to our own federation.
Okay.
And then within that, each lodge is free within those guidelines to govern themselves under what is called their lodge bylaws. In other words, like any club or society or group, they have bylaws, regulations that govern what they do. So yeah, we do have rules, and obviously those rules need to be kept.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, obviously if somebody breaks the rules, then there are consequences, that's right. But within the guidelines, each lodge is free. It has what's called autonomy, freedom to govern itself.
What made you become a Freemason?
Okay, well, that's an interesting one. I think in my own case, I'd perhaps subconsciously always been looking for it. I remember when I was a very small child, my brother used to play me tunes from Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute, on the piano, and I always loved that. So maybe at a subconscious level it was always there. But being serious, it was, my grandfather was a Freemason in the men's order. My grandfather, who I never knew actually, he died before I was born. So there was Freemasonry in my family, although my father actually chose not to join. But my mother had a very good friend who was in fact a member of this order, although I didn't know that at the time. So I'd always known vaguely that women could be Freemasons.
Okay.
And when I got older, many years later, I suddenly, what had been in the back of my mind suddenly came to the front of my mind, and I thought, this is interesting, I'd really like to explore more about this. So I went on the net and I googled women Freemasons, co-Freemasonry, and lo and behold, this order popped up.
Yeah.
So I sent an email and was contacted very shortly thereafter by our membership officer.
Okay.
Very, very delightful man. We had a chat on the phone. I was then introduced to 2 or 3 different lodges, and I went and had tea with them after their meeting, because obviously I couldn't go to the meeting at that stage, but they lodges will invite people who are interested to tea afterwards, to what's called our festive board.
Okay.
So you can go along, chat to people, ask questions, and I did that a couple of times, and then decided, yeah, I think this is for me. So I went ahead and applied to join.
What are the benefits of becoming a Mason? Has your life like altered?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so indeed. I mean, there are all sorts of benefits at the most superficial level. Obviously, you make new friends and you meet new people. That's lovely. You can do that in all sorts of things. But on top of that, you learn how to deal with people. I would say it's better than any expensive management training course. You learn how to deal with people as a team. But there's more to it than that. You learn about yourself. That's the most important thing of all.
Yeah.
You learn to study yourself, how you work, why you do what you do, how you interact with other people, and you learn about your place in the world and other people's place in the world.
Yeah.
And you become more open to spiritual things as well. And yeah, you learn about spiritual matters, and basically how to bring more light to yourself and light to other people as well. Light meaning knowledge, truth, that kind of thing.
There are, as we spoke about before, there are like rumours, people speculating about Freemasonry. There's a lot of ignorance going away, and we just wanted to know I would like you to just clear up those rumours and explain exactly what Freemasonry is about. I know you said it before.
Okay,
how do you feel? First of all, how do you feel about the rumours, the negative rumours?
Okay, about the rumours, I feel sad about them, and I think that they come out of the fact that the world is not a very happy place at the moment, and many people have difficult lives. And sometimes people adjust to why their lives are difficult, but sometimes people feel that they have to have something or someone to blame. And Freemasonry, of necessity, is a society with secrets. It's not a secret society. That is a misconception that there often is. It is not a secret society. It is a society with certain secrets. And actually those secrets are relatively few. They are really confined to the ways that we recognise one another in the lodge. We can tell people we're Freemasons. Indeed, I'm perfectly happy to do so. But because of this certain amount of secrecy there is, it leads those who are so inclined to come up with all sorts of outlandish conspiracy theories. You've heard them all, that we're devil worshippers, that we do all sorts of strange and outlandish things, and that we run the world, that we keep all the money for ourselves and the power and all this sort of thing. It is certainly not true. Being a Freemason is never going to make you rich, it's never going to make you powerful. And indeed, if anyone thought that they were joining for those reasons, it would be very quickly found out that they would not be what we call fit and proper persons to be made Masons. They would be totally unsuitable because you do not join for those kind of motives.
Are there any famous Freemasons you can mention, past and present?
Oh, there are many famous Freemasons. It's and if you go on the net, you can find all sorts. Too many to list here. American presidents, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and people from the arts, the sciences, all sorts. Many, many, many prime ministers of this country, Sir Winston Churchill, kings of this country, George VI, who's the father of the present Queen. So yes, many, many, many. I don't think, I'm not sure that in this order we have anyone who's particularly a household name, but we have many people who are well respected in the fields that they work in. So yes, there are many distinguished Freemasons.
Sally, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fidel. Pleasure.
I was then allowed a brief tour of inside the lodge.
Yeah, that's George VI, the father of the present Queen. And this picture next to it is an interesting one because that is Elizabeth St Ledger, the Honourable Mrs Aldworth, who was a female Mason. The reason she became a female Mason was because she basically eavesdropped on a meeting which was going on in her father's house. Her father was an aristocrat and he was holding a Masonic meeting in his house. And she peeked through so she could see what was going on. And basically she was discovered doing that, so they didn't know quite what to do, and the only way to get round it was to initiate her. So she became a Mason in a men's lodge. There's sashes of various degrees because basically Freemasonry goes, well, there are three main degrees which you've probably heard of: entered apprentice, fellow craft and master mason. But what we do here is called the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite, which means that there are degrees beyond Master Mason right up to 33rd degree, which comparatively few people get. That's very, very special.
I was also permitted a brief tour of inside one of their temples.
Known as the Small Temple, and basically it's a similar layout to the other one. That's the Master's chair there, what's called the Senior Warden and the Junior Warden. They're the three most senior officers of the lodge, the Master and his two wardens. And then there are other officers.
After gaining knowledge from the International Code Freemasonry, I felt eager to learn some more about this brotherhood. I decided to dig a little deeper and hold an interview with John Hamill, a 32nd degree Mason at the Grand Lodge of England. We're in the beautiful venue, the United Grand Lodge of England. I'm here with John. John, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi. Can you explain your role here and who you are?
I'm John Hamill. I've worked for the United Grand Lodge of England for 40 years. I used to run the Library and Museum, but I'm now the Director of Special Projects, working on a major history of the organisation because we've got our 300th anniversary coming up in 2017.
Can you explain where we are?
We're in Freemasons Hall in the centre of London, which is the national headquarters of the United Grand Lodge of England. It was built as a memorial to the members who died in the First World War, but we've been on this site since 1775.
Okay. So when did it exactly start?
Organised Freemasonry started in 1717 when 4 London lodges came together and formed the Grand Lodge, the first Grand Lodge in the world. Yeah. When Freemasonry started is a question which Masonic historians have been trying to work out for more than 150 years. We know we certainly go back to the late 15, early 1600s, but quite when, how and where it started, nobody really knows.
What are the secrets, if you're allowed to explain, like briefly, what are the secrets of Freemasonry?
What people usually refer to as the secrets are the words, signs, and the famous handshake we use as a test of membership. If I go to a lodge where I'm not known, obviously I have to prove myself, and I use those to show who I am and how far I got in the organisation. Apart from that, no secrets in Freemasonry at all.
Okay, why is it known as a secret society?
I think largely because for a period from just before the Second World War until the early 1980s, we had been very much in the public eye up until the late 1930s. Public processions, newspaper reports. We ran 2 newspapers which were on public sale, which the public could read what was going on. Then, because of what was going on in Europe, the fascist dictators, Hitler, Franco, Mussolini, all banned Freemasonry. We went rather quiet, and it became a bad habit. Okay. And we sort of took ourselves out of the public consciousness in the 1940s and 1950s. Worse, we didn't deal with journalists when they raised questions. We didn't talk to the press, and we allowed this mythology to go up in the 1950s and 1960s.
Could you give us like a true meaning behind the symbols illustrated in Freemasonry?
Which of the many would you like?
The black and white tiled floor.
Black and white tiled floor, the 3 ceremonies by which you become a Master Mason are built on the Old Testament telling of the building of King Solomon's temple. The flooring of the temple was said to be black and white. Symbolically, it represents the good and evil, the goodness and the badness you will come across as you go through life.
Okay. What about the compass?
Square and compasses, which are the most well-known Masonic symbols. The compasses remind you to keep everything you do within due bounds, to act appropriately with people, to use your integrity, to do everything you do in a moral way. The square reminds you that everybody is equal. Okay. You act with people on the square again. You behave in a responsible manner with everybody in your private and your public life.
Okay, there's a lot of speculation going on in the world. How much power does Freemasonry have on the world itself? Absolutely none. None.
Simple as that. There's a huge mythology which has grown up over the years. Huge amount of anti-Masonic material on the web, which implies this. But if we had the power we're reputed to have, I went through in the late 1990s twice. The then Grand Secretary, who's our sort of chief executive, and I were questioned by a major committee of the House of Commons. The same thing happened when the Welsh Assembly was set up. If we had power, that sort of thing, of course, wouldn't happen.
Okay. Is there any connection between Freemasonry, Illuminati, Bilderbergers, etc.?
The Illuminati, which was set up by a man called Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria in the late 18th century and only existed for about 20 years before it was closed down by the Bavarian government and other governments in the princely states in Germany, drew its membership from Freemasonry, but it was never actually a Masonic organization.
Okay.
There are a lot of organizations which exist today, mainly on the internet, which claim to be the Illuminati, but no connection with Freemasonry at all. Okay. Same with the Bilderberg group. They were set up after the Second World War as a means of world leaders and people getting together quietly just to talk over things. And again, nothing to do with Freemasonry.
Okay. I'm really interested to know what exactly takes place in a lodge meeting.
Yep. Lodge meeting, in London, on average, a lodge will meet 4 times a year. One meeting will be when they change the master, they install a new master and his officers. The other 3 meetings, it will usually be one of the 3 ceremonies by which they make a new Mason. Like any sort of association, we start off with a ceremonial opening. Minutes of the last meeting will be read. Any financial business to do with a lodge, because like all sorts of clubs, they don't exist on free air. We pay subscriptions. Anything to do with if they're going to make donations to charity, that sort of thing. Routine administrative stuff to do with the lodge. And then, as I said, the main thing will be one of the three ceremonies, which are in two parts. The first, slightly dramatic, when the candidate is introduced and he's taken around the lodge to show who he is. And then the second part is a sort of monologue by one of the officers explaining the principles of that particular ceremony and the duties that he's expected to carry out as a Freemason.
I've noticed some of the men walking around with one trouser leg rolled up. What does that mean?
That happens only in three ceremonies. That's the only time that you roll one or other of the trouser legs up. In the first ceremony, it's to show that you are a free man.
Okay.
If you had not been a free man, there would be evidence of having been shackled round your ankles.
Okay.
But it's simply a symbolic way of showing that you are a freeborn person.
Okay. Why do Freemasons take oaths?
It's a serious promise to follow A, the laws of the land, B, respect to God however you worship him, and C, to carry out your duties as a good citizen. Simple as that, and a promise that you won't, outside the context of Freemasonry, use or divulge the words, signs and tokens that we use as tests of membership.
Okay.
It's a test of somebody's integrity.
If any of these rules are broken, is there a serious sanction involved, or...?
Yes, if our rules are broken, depending, or if a member unfortunately falls foul of the law, we have a discipline system which, depending on the nature of the offence, means either membership is suspended for a time or you're thrown out and will not get back in again.
Is there any favoritism if you're a member? I know Freemasons look after each other. Does this involve people that are not members?
They only look after each other in certain very clearly defined circumstances. In fact, one of the great no-nos and one of the great myths about Freemasonry is that we help each other regardless of the circumstances. Yeah. And in fact, in the obligation you take in the third ceremony, you state quite specifically that you will not help them, particularly if they're behaving unlawfully. And in fact, part of the disciplinary system addresses that. If an individual comes in and tries to misuse his membership for his own or anybody else's advantage, there are sanctions which will be taken against them in the same way, either temporary suspension or being thrown out altogether, because that is not what Freemasonry is for.
Is it true you are against certain religions, or are you a religion yourself?
Not a religion. The prime qualification for admission into Freemasonry is that you must have a religious belief.
Okay.
What that belief is entirely up to the individual, and you won't be questioned on it, you won't be told what it is. What we try to do is, whoever it was that started off Freemasonry made a basic rule at the start, which has always been followed. The two things we don't talk about at Masonic meetings are religion and politics. We know they divide people. We're much more interested in how you can bring people together. We know what divides. We're much more interested in finding out what they can work together and bring together to work for the good of the community as a whole.
Okay. Is the book, why don't you call it a Bible? Why do you call it the VSL?
We call it a VSL because for those who are not Christian, the Bible isn't a sacred book. You take your obligation on the book that is sacred to your religion. So that you'll quite often find in a number of lodges, particularly because of our imperial past, we still have over 700 lodges abroad. And if you go to somewhere like Hong Kong or Singapore, on the master's pedestal you'll not only find the Bible, but you'll find a Quran, you'll find a Torah, you'll find the holy books used by the Hindus and the Sikhs, because all those religions will be represented. Okay. So it's a sort of shorthand. We call it the volume of sacred law because to the majority of English Freemasons who are Christian, it is the Bible, but others it's not.
Okay. Is it true that some churches are not in favor of Freemasonry?
We have a problem occasionally, mainly with fundamentalism. The evangelical wing of the Anglican Church are not well disposed towards Freemasonry. Same again, fundamentalist Islam is not well disposed towards Freemasonry.
Do you have to be part of some sort of group or ethnicity or sex to not be a member? I mean, do you have to have, is there certain rules before you become a Freemason?
No, the only rule is that you have a belief in a supreme being.
Okay.
After that, it's like any club or association. Obviously, you need to be able to afford the annual subscription, which is not a huge amount. Average in a London lodge is probably about £150 a year. Out in the provinces, probably slightly less. But apart from that, no bar on social standing, ethnicity, race, religion, anything like that.
What about sex?
Under United Grand Lodge of England, we are historically a male-only organisation.
Okay.
But there are two organisations of women Freemasons in this country, which we meet with on a social basis from time to time. There's also a group called Co-Masonry, which is mixed, men and women.
Okay. Can you explain the attire required to become a Freemason?
We still wear suits, so you turn up smart.
Yeah.
Then, as you go through the normal thing, which most people recognise, we wear a stylised apron, and as you progress through the lodge and become an officer of the lodge, you'll wear a collar, which will have an emblem hanging from it, which is the emblem of your office.
Yeah.
The apron, rather like a uniform, changes as you move up within the organisation.
So how many degrees are there?
Under what we call craft Freemasonry, which is what's run in this building, 3 degrees. There are various other Masonic organisations which you can join once you become a Master Mason, depending on time and circumstance. One of which seems to attract a lot of interest is the Ancient Accepted Rite, which goes up to 33 degrees.
Okay.
But it's not superior to Grand Lodge. You have to be a member of Freemasonry in a lodge before you can go into that. And it's just a numerical superiority. It's not in any way a higher status of Freemason.
All right. What degree are you?
I hold the 32nd in the Ancient Accepted.
Okay. Okay, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good.
I was then allowed a short tour of inside the Grand Lodge of England.
We're in the Grand Temple at Freemasons Hall in London, which is where the United Grand Lodge holds its meeting. It seats about 1,700, and in addition to Masonic events, we have all sorts of non-Masonic events, concerts, degree congregations, fashion shows, and things like that go on in this building, which is open to the public. As you'd expect, a lot of symbolism. The ceremonies being based on the building of King Solomon's Temple. You have Solomon and Hiram, King of Tyre, presiding with a ladder going up to a symbol representing God. In the corners you have 4 figures representing prudence, temperance, fortitude and justice. And on this west end you have Euclid and Pythagoras, geometry being the basis of architecture, Euclid and Pythagoras being the founders of geometry. Where we are now is a processional corridor when Grand Lodge is in session. The Grand Officers of the year have a changing room down the end. They're formed into a procession here, and the Grand Master, who is currently His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, or whoever's presiding on that particular occasion, joins the procession, and then they go through into the Grand Temple to start the meeting. At the other end of the corridor is a rather interesting portraits gallery, and then the Library and Museum, which is now regarded as a World Heritage collection. We'd like to go through that way. Very long connection between the British royal family and Freemasonry, and the portraits in this room are all of members of the royal family who have been Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England, including King George IV, who was Prince of Wales, was Grand Master for 21 years, and King Edward VII, who was Grand Master from 1874 until he came to the throne in 1901. And in the centre, the present Grand Master, His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, who has been our Grand Master since 1967, and we hope will be still there for the 300th anniversary in 2017. This is a standard lodge room, which wherever you go in England or Wales, you'll find a lodge room set out in exactly the same way. Lodge is ruled by Master, a Senior, and a Junior Warden, and the rest of the brethren and their guests sit around the rest of the room. And that's the basic format, as I said, you'd find anywhere. Checkered floor again, which you'll find in every lodge room. And on the pedestals you see a rough stone, which is the candidate as he comes into Freemasonry. And then on the senior warden's pedestal, the perfect stone, ready to be used by the builder, which we hope is what will happen to the candidate as he goes through the 3 ceremonies to become a Master Mason, become a more polished member of society.
Over the period of filming this documentary, I was able to get an insight into Freemasonry from 2 different perspectives. Through my findings, I found Freemasonry to be different from the stereotypical view in today's society. But can Freemasonry really escape negative criticism? I'm Fidel Channer. Thank you for watching Inside Freemasonry. Until next time.